Thank you for listening to Community Connections with Norma G. We're the place where we talk about your business, a product, an idea, or a project to get the word out to our community. I'm your host, occupational therapist Norma Guerrero. Today we are sharing our passions while connecting with our community. Give us a call at 888-565-1470 and join our conversation. Don't forget to tune in every Monday night at 5 to 6 p.m. to join me, Norma G, and our guests to find out about what's hot, what's new, and what's happening in our community. Can't wait to see you there. Now let's rejoin the show. Welcome back to Community Connections with Norma G. I'm your host, Norma Guerrero, and we want to thank our sponsors, Whitehall Boca, for allowing us to share with them and their guests that they are working with in the community. We have two fabulous guests coming up now in the second and third segments. And if you want to tune in again on the radio at 95.3 FM at 1470 AM, also at iHeart app at 1470 AM WNN, or watch us live on Community Connections with Norma G on your Facebook. We also are live on Periscope, so you can check us out there, and you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram as well. So our next guest is Mr. Bill Saffron, and he is with OneCall Homecare.
Correct.
And this is a really, really interesting concept that he's come up with, and he's going to talk to us about it. And he basically called it geriatric speed dating. So let's get a little clarity on what that means.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming.
I refer to it as geriatric speed dating more with the children, not the actual patients. So I don't think the patients would understand it. But OneCall Homecare is a nurse registry.
Yes.
And we are licensed in Broward and Palm Beach County. The Palm Beach County allows us to take care of patients all the way up to Port St. Lucie. We provide home health aides and certified nurse assistants, and they provide what's called ADLs, activities of daily living. Things such as bathing, dressing, transferring from bed to wheelchair.
Yes.
They'll do personal grooming, toileting, lighthouse cleaning, laundry, linen changes, drive somebody to doctor's appointments, personal shopping, grocery shopping, those type of things. So it's non-medical. So,
but that is a caregiver, a home health
Correct.
aide, or a certified nurse assistant.
Correct.
And so what's unique about how you select, and I think that's what
Right.
I meant by the geriatric speed
Right.
dating,
Yeah.
the way you described it.
That's a great question.
Is what is it that makes you unique, that you're...
What makes us unique is most of the agencies in the industry discourage interviews where we encourage it. We do the opposite. A lot of the agencies don't want to go the extra mile, make all the phone calls to all the different caregivers to see if they're available to get in their car and drive to a facility or somebody's home for an interview. But I treat it more like a matchmaking service, which it should be. I treat every case like it's my own mother or father, and I've been through it before with my dad. So I believe in options. So I'll give a family or a patient the opportunity to meet 3, 4, 5. I've done as many as 14 caregivers for a family that was looking for
It took
two
that long for them
12-hour
to
shifts.
decide?
Well, they wanted 2 12-hour shifts, so we interviewed 7 people for the day shift and 7 for the night. And that's only because I knew that's probably how many it was going to take, because the family had fired about 20 agencies inside the facility.
Were they a little bit high maintenance, the family?
Very.
A little bit? They were very high maintenance.
Very much.
Now, Bill, I'm an occupational therapist,
Correct.
as you know.
As I know.
And an occupational therapist, the definition of it is ADLs, activities of daily living.
Exactly.
And encouraging patients to get back to their independence with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if the patient they're not able to get to independence, there's still minimal assist, moderate assist, maximal,
Correct.
supervision, contact guard, whichever it is. That's when we need to bring an aide into the picture. And in my profession, in my career, I've met thousands of aides, and I've
Right.
met amazing aides. And usually by the time I've met them, they've kind of settled into who their aide is. But I am a part when they're discharging from a rehab facility,
Right.
that they may be the first time they get an aide.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, Also, when you're doing home health, someone's first coming home from the hospital.
Right.
They're just getting an aide. And the aide will go into another room. I walk in to do the treatment, and they start telling me, they're not trying to be mean. They're just not, they don't have the chemistry.
Correct.
And so what you're doing is you're offering a platform to try and improve the odds of success and chemistry.
That's exactly correct. Once I get a referral from a physician, hospital, rehab facility, etc., the first thing we do is we try to meet with the patient and or family and assess the situation, figure out what type of caregiver they're going to need, if it's going to be an hourly person or if it's going to be a live-in person, if it's hourly, how many days a week, how many hours a week. So then we start narrowing down the type of caregiver we're going to get. But once, we get the 3 or 4 or 5 caregivers for the family to meet, we spend about 15 minutes with each caregiver. So in a matter of an hour, they can meet 4 different people. And I've done literally hundreds and hundreds of these interviews over the years. And when you interview, 3, 4, 5 people, there's always one person that really stands out that the family really falls in love with. And these situations, they tend to last much longer.
Right,
So,
right. Well, it also gives, I think it's very important, it also gives an element of control in a scenario where people are actually losing control.
Right, exactly.
So now it's a little bit of psychology.
Right.
And so are people, the caregivers, is this covered through their insurance or is this all private-based?
No, good question. Unfortunately, Medicare doesn't really pay for ADLs. I mean, Medicare will take care of a bath visit on a recent hospital discharge, but it's very limited. But if somebody needs somebody in their home for several hours a day, the only thing that's going to pay for it is long-term care insurance, which I would say about half the people have.
Okay.
And if it's not long-term care insurance, it's check or credit card. It's out of pocket.
So for the listener out there, so that you understand, so if someone, if your mom or dad, grandma, grandpa goes into a hospital or rehab, they get discharged home. Medicare covers home health services, and home health services usually last with about a month or 2, depending on the level of, if there's wounds involved, if there's IVs involved. But if it's a general recovery from like a pneumonia or even a knee or a hip, usually it'll dissipate after 4 to 6 weeks. And they're going to provide an aide, usually about 3 times a week for like a half hour to an hour a day to come help with the showers.
Correct.
But if your mom or dad needs more service, that's where you need this private home care service.
Right.
And agencies provide that, but they're going to send whoever they have on their list. What Bill is offering through OneCall Homecare, OneCall Homecare, is that private concierge matchmaking service, which we meet a lot of people that are very selective and very particular. And whatever that extra, I guess, they have to invest in with you, but if they're more satisfied and they have more control, their quality of life is improved.
Exactly.
And I think that's really important.
Right.
Because people don't like strangers in their home. And if you can bridge that gap of connection, that's going to also put a lot of stress off of the son or daughter that's trying to manage this care.
Correct.
So I think it's a really unique service that you're offering, personalized, because, some people enjoy fine dining. They enjoy looking at a wine list.
Correct.
They enjoy, multiple courses, and they want to have that control to choose. And in your healthcare, as I'm doing the show and I'm meeting all these different people offering all these different levels of services and variety aspects of people's care, it seems as if boutique concierge services is where people really are seeking that. So it's not just the run of the mill. It works great in some cases, but it's also nice to have the option.
Correct.
And that's what you're offering. And so how do we find you if somebody's looking to
I have
retain your services?
I have a website, which is www.onecall. It's one spelled out O-N-E. So it's onecallcarefl.com. The 800 number is 800-505-3982. And I can always be reached by my cell phone, which is 561-716-1055.
Now, the people that you bring into the home, do they have special credentials or experience?
Yeah, well, they're, because we're licensed and we're regulated by ACA, the Agency of Healthcare Administration, all our caregivers are licensed and have been, gone to school and been trained on ADLs. We require all our caregivers to have their own liability insurance as well on top of our own agency insurance. And the caregivers that we use, we're only using people that have several references and a well-documented track record. So on interview day, if I've got 5 caregivers that I'm presenting to the family, all 5 are high-caliber caregivers. But again, there's always one that really stands out that the family clicks with.
And how do you track when they're there, when they're not there? How do you monitor
Good question.
that?
What we do, I've seen it with a handful of agencies in South Florida. There's a company or program out there called Clockability. And what it is the caregiver, once they get into the patient's home, they have to use the family's landline. And that age group, like my mother,
Yes.
They all have landlines.
Right.
They need those landlines
Right.
in case they have to call 911. So when the caregiver calls this specific number, it goes into our computer system. So it's like an electronic time punch, so to speak. And when they leave, they call this number again. So we have real-time, exact time as to when the caregiver's there. So when we go to, this is how we manufacture our invoices.
Sure.
Clients are not overcharged. In many cases, I've heard stories about a client pays, or a caregiver may have left a little bit early, and they had the client sign a timesheet, and they got charged a little extra. So that's not going to happen with our system.
Okay. So now, if someone does have a long-term care policy, those insurance companies, do they give the family member the liberty to choose from, where they want to hire their aide from?
Yeah, good question. Most long-term care insurance companies, if you call them up and ask them for a name of an agency, they all have a list of whatever, 10, 20 in that area. But it's patient choice. You can use anybody you want. They don't really have a relationship with those agencies. They don't know much about those agencies other than they put them on a list. So, the best way to find an agency is probably word of mouth, or go to a social worker in a rehab facility or a case manager at a hospital and ask them who's got a good reputation. But these days, I would say 70% of my business is word of mouth.
Okay.
Which is the best business.
And how did you get involved in this business? What background do you have? Do you have a medical background yourself?
A marketing background.
A marketing.
So I have been in the industry for about 30 years, and I started out in the laboratory business, calling on hospitals, selling capital equipment, diagnostic test kits to all the different departments of a hospital laboratory. Did that for a few years, and then I had a job offer for a little bit more money, so I switched to wound care, and I was calling on hospitals, renting these specialty beds and high-tech air mattresses, very expensive high-tech air mattresses that delivered therapy, and these were designed for helping people with the prevention and treatment of decubitus ulcers, which is the clinical term for bed sores. Did that for several years, and then had the opportunity to get into home care with my own agency about 16 years ago. So I've been in the world of home health for about 16 years.
And you've been in, back from when you were doing the marketing with the laboratories.
Right.
And what area are you servicing as far as providing aids?
Which counties?
Yes, which counties?
Broward County and Palm Beach County, but again, the Palm Beach license encompasses Indian River, Port St. Lucie counties, so we can go all the way up to Port St. Lucie. So it's a fairly large service area.
And the other thing I'd like to know, just based on my experiences also, is that your family member doesn't necessarily need to have an impairment, a physical impairment. oftentimes people just because of some memory problems or
Correct.
some cognitive issues, but yet they're super high functioning. They still can walk and take care of
Correct.
themselves. They're looking for a companion. So even though you're still hiring an aide, we kind of describe it a little bit more as a companion, meaning that they're there for supervision, not
Correct.
so much there for the physical aspect of it. And so
We have quite a few clients like that really don't need the ADLs. They need the supervision. The kids live up north and are concerned about their mother
it's smart.
leaving on the stove type of thing. So, minimum number of hours that most agencies require are 4 hours a day, 3 days a week. But we will do less than that. If we can find a caregiver and somebody only needs somebody for 2 hours a week, we will try to make that happen for the family.
and you can do up to 24 hours a day as well.
You can do up to
7
24
days
hours a
week.
day. That's considered
Whatever
a
they
live-in. And some people, depending on their diagnosis, some people, if they're not sleeping at night, and it becomes a problem if the caregiver has to get up more than 2-3 times a night. Usually, if that's happening on a consistent basis, the caregiver is going to go to their supervisor, and ask to be reassigned. So some people have to go with the 2 12s, but not everybody can afford that. So it gets 2 12-hour shifts is twice as much money as having a live-in.
Bill, tell our listeners one more time, what's your website, what's your phone number, and how can they find you?
The website is www.OneCallCareFL, and one is spelled out, O-N-E. The 800 number is 800-505-3982, and my cell phone number is 561-716-1055.
And I think a little bit of the theme of today's show is that in the previous segment we were talking about job safety, road safety, driving safety, and a big component to your loved one not re-injuring themselves or preventing injury is having that supervision and assist in the home through a caregiver. I see it every single day. I take care of it every single day. The falls, the fractures, the surgeries, and having and patients, clients, people, they resist it, but it really is a smart thing to do. If you observe that, or if you have a healthcare personnel member calling you saying, we really recommend this, you want to look into having a caregiver. It actually eventually will make their life a lot easier and funner, and yours. So we're going to take another commercial. We're going to bring on our next guest. Bill, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about this very special. I love that you're taking that extra time and investing in your company to provide that for the patients.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for coming
Thanks.
so much. We'll be right back.